Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of A Cup of Joe. My name is Joe Escobedo, and with me on the show today is Ian Santos. Ian is the country manager for Mundipharma based in the Philippines. Thanks so much for being on the show, Ian.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Absolutely. We've been connected for a while now on LinkedIn, so I just wanted to find out a bit more about you. You have a very interesting background, so I wanted to find out more. I know you're very passionate about kind of developing not only yourself, but also your team. You're very active in terms of training. You're a Mansmith and Fielders trainer. You were a trainer. So I want to hear more about.
Still am. Yeah.
You still am. Okay, perfect. So I want to hear your thoughts in terms of why do you think training and development is so important? Do you think you as well as your team?
Yeah, very good question, Joe. Thanks for that. In any business, no matter what industry you're in, whatever business you're in, I always believe, and I'm sure you also agree. You'd also agree with me that numbers, sales, objectives, KPIs are all delivered by people, right? So for me, if I train and develop my people well, I think eventually it's going to help the company deliver its goals and objectives. And the bonus there is you also get to give your people extra skills, extra training, knowledge that they can use in their career, or if they want to go out of corporate in the future and do become an entrepreneur. These are skills that are usable in other facets of life as well. So really that's what makes me passionate about training and developing people.
No, I think it's a very good point. I think for us in the training development space, it's good to know, like I said, that a lot of organizations and executives like yourself are placing emphasis on that because, like you said, it does help those achieve their own goals, whether it's personally or professionally. I'm curious, what are some of the skills that you think are very timely for right now? What are some of the in demand, most demand skills do you think you and your team need?
During the last few months, everyone's been in some sort of, I'm sure, some sort of quarantine, lockdown, being sort of imprisoned in their house, right? But also, it's been a real test of people's, I would say, resilience, agility, and adaptability. So I think those three things, among other things, are very, very important today. Not just for leaders, but also for any employee. I mean, you need to be able to work yourself away from your comfort zone, adapt, and become flexible, and always look at the bright side of things. Because if you always focus on what your current negative situation is, then you'll never move forward. So it's all about mindset and attitude. I think those are the key things that are important during these times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot has changed now. And I think a lot of people are having difficulties making the transition. Like I said, it is difficult for a lot of folks, with the recession and the economy down in a lot of places. So it's very good advice for anyone. And, I think you have always been very passionate about kind of learning and development. But for those executives or those organizations where you think that it's not, a top priority, how would you even sell that in internally, the importance of training development to, say, the CEO?
Yeah, well, I think if you want your business to be sustainable, not just during these times but afterwards, you need to be able to have a workforce that is very not just adaptable, but also in terms of they need to have the right mindset to overcome any obstacle and challenges. And I think this is a perfect time right now. I tend to look at things on the bright side. So I always ask myself, what's good about what's happening today? I think what's happening today is forcing companies to really rethink how they manage, they train, they develop their people. Especially because most of us are now working remotely, right? And we haven't been really trained here, at least in the Philippines. Maybe in some other countries you've been used to working from home, but in the Philippines it's a totally new concept. I mean, I've worked hard to convince our HR director in my past company to work at home once a month. Now it's almost every day, right? So I think this is a perfect time for leaders and owners of companies to really rethink how they should continuously develop and train their people to be ready for any eventuality.
No, it's a really good point. And I want to get your thoughts on something else because you have been in the pharma space for the past few years. One of the biggest challenges that I always hear is around compliance and things like that. Now, obviously, you have, in addition to the leadership role, you've also been in a kind of a sales role previously as well in some of your previous organizations. So, what are some of the big challenges you think that pharma companies are facing nowadays?
Huge challenges, Joe. I mean, the fact that people are afraid to go to the hospitals means that medicine sales in hospitals have gone down significantly. That's number one.
Mm.
Number two, doctors are not really keen on doing face-to-face interactions right now. So that really limits face-to-face engagement of pharma reps with doctors. Now, having said that, the pharma companies who are adaptable, flexible, and resilient and agile, like in our case in Mundipharma, early on during the start of the lockdowns in the Philippines, sometime April, we already pivoted. So I think that's the right word. We already started planning for online engagement and webinars with doctors, and we were one of the first companies to actually implement it starting June. So I think the companies were able to pivot fast and look and go around or go over the obstacles and look at a new business model are the companies who are going to succeed during this pandemic and even post-pandemic.
That's a good point. And I was speaking with someone yesterday in the pharma space, and they're talking about how a lot of pharma organizations tend to be quite traditional in their kind of growth point of view. A lot of it's very, traditional, emails and face-to-face sales like you would usually have. But they're trying to wonder, they're wondering now, how do we make the shift? And you talked about right now, having more webinars. What are some of the other things that you guys have done online that have helped you kind of move away from some of the traditional channels, which are difficult to implement right now?
Well, aside from webinars, we've also implemented online meetings with customers. So not just hospitals are not our only customers. Also the pharmacy chains. Like there's a big pharmacy chain in the Philippines called Mercury. It's basically half of the pharma industry. So we've managed to online meetings with some of them, not all of them, because it also depends on the readiness of the customer, right? So so that's one thing. Another thing is, aside from online, we've also used a lot of SMS and emails. So I think in other countries these are more used and advanced, but I think we're now forced to do it and I think in a way it has accelerated multi-channel engagement between pharma companies and customers and doctors.
Yeah, no. So I think there's a silver lining in this kind of situation, and I think that's good to know. Mia, is there anything you wanted to jump in and ask Ian?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued at how active a role you guys have played in guiding this shift towards bringing the pharma community and the doctors and the medical community into the digital space. I'm curious what challenges you guys had to face in bringing these people towards this shift.
So one of the challenges that we've encountered, even in my past role when I was in GSK, is the younger generation of doctors, meaning to say probably the Gen X and beyond, are sort of used to doing online, using their laptop, even their phones. But I would say the more senior generations, I don't want to call them old. There's been some challenges in teaching them or convincing them to use laptops for online meetings. But I think now everyone's been forced to do it. So I think in a way that has helped us convince them that this is the new way of doing things. And one more thing that's happening right now is prescriptions are being done. You can just talk to your doctor, ask for a prescription via Viber or WhatsApp, and just show it to the pharmacy, and they will accept it. So I think in a way that has also is one of the things that's also new and more convenient for patients and even consumers or customers. So I think in a way a lot of things that we found hard to implement before is now becoming easier because of the fact that people cannot move around. And having said that, we just moved to another tighter lockdown because in the Philippines the cases are now 100,000. We're not doing very well with this pandemic. So all the more, a lot of I think all of these changes that's happening now is going to be here in the future, even after the pandemic.
Yeah, so I think now is the time to do it because, like you said, it's probably going to be extended. Even here in Singapore, most people probably won't go back to work until end of the year at the earliest. So
right,
this will continue to be the way. And another thing I want to get your thoughts on is you were awarded the Global Best Large Affiliate Award in 2019. And it had to do a bit around business turnaround, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yes. this one I have to really credit the team, right? I mean, no one person can do it. So, coming from 2018, it wasn't a good year for us. And, fortunately, we were able to build a good leadership team. It's a combination of, old hands and new people coming in, and really, I would say, reinvigorating the culture of the company, the mindset and the attitude. And again, as we talked about earlier, once you focus on people, training them, developing them, getting them aligned to one vision, ensuring that the culture supports that vision, great things can happen in terms of business. So we were able to turn around the business in 2019, and the whole in the whole Mundipharma world, we were awarded the best large affiliate. So it's a work of all the people in the company.
Nice. When you said it's a combination of a couple different things, I guess it goes back to the leadership, which you mentioned, and also getting them on board with the culture. Was there anything else that you think was instrumental in terms of, helping turn the business around?
I think also what contributed was, not focusing on the past, meaning what worked, what didn't work on the past, but focusing things on what can we do today that we haven't done before. And we may make mistakes, and we did some mistakes. We got some failures, but we got more wins than the losses. More successes than failures. And I think it's a culture of giving people also the freedom and the psychological safety to commit mistakes. I think that was something that we introduced. Hence, if you do that, people will be more willing to come up with ideas. And we didn't consider any ideas crazy until we tested it and failed, right? So I think that's one thing that we did differently in 2019 and up to now.
I always loved that culture when I was an employee, is giving them the freedom to experiment, fail, see what works, what doesn't work. I think it's the only way you really grow. And I think it's something we try to do with the team as well, is give them an opportunity and say, look, you have free reign. Obviously it goes back to our company culture, which we talked about earlier, but you know what, go out there, see what works, and then have fun with it too. I think it's about learning as well. So a lot of times people, they leave because they don't feel like they're learning, they're pushing themselves. But I love that you've given them the opportunity to, giving them the freedom to fail, essentially. I think it's very heartening as an employee. I know we were talking about that recently with Red Hat. We spoke with their employer branding lead to find out how they implement culture and how they, help permeate that throughout the organization. So Mia,
yeah. Sorry, I'm really intrigued by this whole idea, because I can just imagine, especially for such a big company like Mundipharma, trying to imbibe this kind of culture must have taken a lot of time and a lot of work on your part. What would your tips be for other large companies, maybe more traditional companies as well, who want to start developing this culture among their employees?
Yeah, good question, Mia, right? So it really starts from the top, right? I know it's been said a lot of times, but if the person on top, meaning the leader, doesn't, show it, act it, and just says it doesn't work. So number one, it comes from the top, and the whole leadership team needs to be aligned. So in our case, I had to make sure that the whole leadership team was aligned with the concept, with the vision, with the culture. Otherwise, if you're the only one, advocating for it, people won't feel it down the line, right? So you, the person on top, whoever it is, plus the leadership team needs to walk the talk, to literally walk the talk. You have to be telling people the same things, saying the same things, and also doing the same things. And it has to be, whatever you're doing needs to be aligned with what's written on your whatever values, mission, vision, and value statement that's on the wall. Because oftentimes what's written on that piece of nice framed paper is not the one that's happening on the ground. And if people don't see the leaders actually doing it, why will they follow? So really, you need to set the example and really make sure everyone is aligned.
That's a very good point. Yeah, sorry, Mia, you gonna...
No, I love that you brought up being such an active leader, because I know that you're such an active leader and such an active thought leader. I've been following you for a while on LinkedIn.
Oh, thank you.
And you have such a strong presence. And I'm sure there are so many leaders out there who want to start developing that kind of presence and being more vocal about their beliefs and their values, because their employees are looking to them for that. How do you suggest they start doing that, especially for those that maybe haven't started yet?
I think there are several different strokes for different folks, right? I mean, the reason I'm active on LinkedIn is because I love to write my thoughts, right? but other people may not be that keen on writing. But some people are more comfortable having town halls, for example. I mean, they could do a weekly or monthly town hall with their teams if they want to. So I guess it's a matter of communicating it in the way you're most comfortable with, and making sure that that communication happens constantly.
Mm. So I noticed, because I follow you on LinkedIn, that's how we kind of met. You are very active in terms of sharing a lot of inspirational quotes, and especially from successful business leaders. The reason I bring that up is because I was speaking with the president of Scholastic Asia, and we talked about what are some of the things you do to learn. And he says, I'm constantly reading biographies about successful leaders and business folks. Is that something you do as well? Because once again, I see Zig Ziglar, I see a couple different successful names. I think it's one that he brought up as well when he's talking about the biographies he's reading. Is that something you do too?
Yeah, great question, Joe. When I was a salesman back in the day, I would say more than 20 years ago, when you're in the hotel room somewhere in the provinces, you don't get to do a lot of things, because at that time, during those times, there was no Netflix, right? There was no Spotify, right? So what I really loved doing then was really, in my car, you'd see at least 5 different books, either autobiographies of successful business people, anything. I'd read anything, mostly nonfiction. And I guess what I was doing 20 years ago is now, I'm using some of those learnings while I share on LinkedIn. And nowadays, I usually watch YouTube or TED Talks, or even read through LinkedIn posts, because I also learn from other LinkedIn post content providers. That's why I think LinkedIn is very powerful. It's not just you. There's not just an opportunity for you to share, but you get to learn a lot from different LinkedIn content providers. So very good platform, I think.
Yeah, no, so that's good, because we always ask people, where are you going to learn? And I think LinkedIn constantly ones that it's showing up now, especially when more folks like yourself are putting out great content. You can kind of, bypass a lot of the media and go straight there. So it's good you're doing that. And as well as the autobiographies, I think it's something I'm trying to do more of, learn from, successful business leaders or even leaders in the past, and see how can we apply those principles. So definitely try to follow in your footsteps. It looks like it's working so far. So definitely gonna try doing that myself more.
Yeah, and if I would also add, Joe, that don't just read people who've been successful. I also try to read people who failed, companies who failed, because I think you'll learn a lot from reading about failure than success, and it's more realistic to some people.
That's a very good point. I think that's something we've been trying to do in our kind of communications as well, because in my case, people always see the success, they see kind of the fortune of having clients, but what they don't see is the struggle that took place for the past few years. So one thing I've been trying to cognizant of is sharing some of those failures. I think that's one thing, because like you said, people only see, the tip of the iceberg. They don't see everything that's gone into it. And I think it resonates with you a lot more when you see someone who has, been through some struggles and trials and tribulations and how they've gone through it. So I think it's something we're constantly trying to share more of. And I shared one with the team earlier as well. So that's a very good point. I'd love to see more executives doing that too.
Great. I mean, the fact that you mentioned we were successful in 2019. A lot of people don't know what's beneath that iceberg. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and failures as well.
Absolutely, and I think those for me are the most memorable stories, because, like you said, you can see the entire journey, not just the successes. Because that's you don't learn as much as you do, like you said, finding out about the failures, the struggles, the sweat that you put into it. So I love that you guys, are embracing that and hopefully sharing that, with others too. Mia?
Absolutely.
Mia's anything? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you guys are talking about failures, because I feel like this ties in very nicely to our earlier discussion on culture and trying to get employees to be actively trying things and not being afraid of failing. I think that's an excellent opportunity to come up with these exciting stories where other people can also learn. And it's scary sometimes for people to share these stories of failure. So I feel like it's great that business leaders like Ian and you, Joe, and everyone else on LinkedIn that are posting and sharing their experiences. It's a good example to set that it's not a bad thing to share these stories of failure.
Yeah, and I think more people should share stories of failure, because number one, it shows that they're authentic, right? And number two, again, I'll say it again, people learn more from failures than successes. because successes are like, it's all rosy and nice, right? But rarely do people talk about what they did in order to be successful. What failures did they go through before being successful? And I think there's a lot of great learnings coming from those failures that they had to go through before being successful.
No, once again, it's a very good point. I mean, even for me, learn a lot more from the failures and successes. I think, we started the company past couple of years, and everything was pretty much, like you said, rosy. I mean, there was definitely some bumps around the road, but we were able to grow quite significantly. And then obviously COVID hit, and that kind of wiped out a lot of the stuff that we had in the pipeline, the plans. So we had to
Right.
take that time to work backwards and say, okay, what it actually led to that success, because we didn't know. We were actually analyzing, we were thinking about it. We were just like, business as usual, continue that way. But that's obviously not the case. So we've taken this opportunity to redo and restructure a lot of the processes, try to analyze what's worked in the past and be a bit more focused in our efforts rather than kind of taking a shotgun approach. So I think, to your point, now is the perfect time to reflect at what has worked and what hasn't worked and put together a more structured, effective plan going forward.
I agree with you there, Joe. And people talk about this pandemic, teaching them what are the essentials in life, right? I mean, all we need really is food, water, shelter. Back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Of course, the love of our family.
Yeah.
Similarly, I think this is a perfect time for businesses, whether it's corporate or your entrepreneurial business, to really simplify things, processes, focus areas. It's a great time to really think about what are the things that will help us grow, help our business, take out all the fluff, and really simplify.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very, very good point. Yeah, see, mine.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things as well is because of the situation being so uncertain, nobody really has the correct answer to anything. And I feel like that gives everyone the opportunity to kind of open up and share experiences with one another, because nobody has the correct formula of how to deal with these situations. And we're seeing people from different industries learning how a totally different industry's practices could actually apply in the situation and help them in the situation. And I feel like more companies should be doing that kind of thing.
Totally agree with you, Mia. And I mean, there's no one solution that's like, it's not a copy paste kind of thing, right? It will depend on which company you're in, what industry. But to your point, it's really worth it to look at different companies and different industries, and check out what they're doing, because some of it might apply in your situation, right? So again, you have to tailor fit the solution based on your current situation and your company, your size, your business, your industry. And that's why I think it's very important and I agree with you, for companies and people to share, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or some other channel, right? Or platform, because now's the time for us to really help each other out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you bring up another good point that we've been talking about recently is a lot of times people are so focused at looking at their competitors' set when it comes up with ideas. And I wrote something about this recently on kind of breaking away from doing that. Because at the end of the day, a lot of times your competitors are doing something very similar, if not the same thing.
Right.
So I love your idea of looking out into other industries, other, fields which are, not in the same space as you, where you can broaden your horizon and get a lot more different ideas. That's something we've been trying to do as well, in trying to just do two things. I guess one is just focus on the customer. So focusing less on the competitors and more on the customer. And then two, looking for outside sources of inspiration to, come up with new ideas, push the boundaries, and do something a bit different in our space.
Right. And I think it's a perfect time to do that as well, because now the rules of the ball game has totally changed for all industries, right? So now is the time to reassess your strategy, as you said, learn from others, and really not be shy or afraid to copy from other companies or industries. I mean, at the end of the day, and I agree with you, at the end of the day, everything you're doing right now, whether it's pivoting to one process or strategy or tactic, simplifying processes, focusing on a particular channel, you have to put the customer in the middle, right? Everything that companies are doing right now needs to make sure that the customer is the one who's benefiting in the end, whether it's faster service, better product delivery, better experience. It's the customer that needs to be thought thought of during all those changes or pivots or strategic moves. Uh, the customer basically pays for our existence, right?
Hey,
So we need to make sure that the customer is happy.
absolutely. I love that analogy. Like I said, Ian, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad we had the chance to catch up. How can people get in touch with you if they want to find out more about what you do?
I'm most active on LinkedIn actually. Although I have Facebook as well. I also have, if I may plug, I have a Twitter page, but it's called Sales Sensei. I talk about leadership and sales there. I just reached 1,001 tweets the other day, so feel free to read up my 1,001 tweets on leadership and sales. But you'll find me mostly on LinkedIn. I try to post at least once a week there.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I already follow you. Via does as well. But for anyone watching this, like I said, please do follow Ian. You'll learn a lot on leadership and sales as well. So thank you so much for being on the show, Ian. Really, really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your insights. It means a lot to us. So if you're watching this and you found it helpful, please feel free to share it with anyone who might find it helpful. Otherwise, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. All right, take care, everyone. Later.